What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. It's time to talk about Fastlane 2019. The pay-per-view just went down, and we're going to give you our fresh thoughts of what just transpired, the good, the bad, and everything in between. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango, and joining me, as always, are Robert DeFelice.
Hello.
And Callum Wiggins.
It was more like the middle lane than Fastlane.
We're going to disagree on some things here. I'm actually in a quite happy mood here. You might not be able to tell from my voice, and just to let you know, if I lose my voice at any point entirely, you can blame it on the Daystacular Gaming Marathon that just went down, and kind of lost it for that. So that's why I'm going to sound like I'm a heavy smoker instead of somebody who completely would never touch those things. And if that does happen, then these guys are going to pick up after the slack that I'll be leaving. But I plan on talking quite a bit about a lot of things that I really enjoyed about this pay-per-view because, to be perfectly honest, as much as I crap on Fastlane, I hate the name, and I don't think that the pay-per-view is necessarily. I really like this, and I got a feeling that this might end up being a contender for my pay-per-view of the year. It's already on my list.
This was a pretty good show.
Callum doesn't like pizza.
There was a point in this show about an hour and a half in where I was literally physically aggressive against this show, to the point where I was about to throw my controller at the TV screen. I was that mad at how bad this show had been booked, in my opinion. But by the end of it, I'd calmed down. It started to make a little bit more sense. They had a few good matches towards the end, but I'm not going to be drawn into saying that this was a good show. It was an okay show.
Well, we're going to break down exactly why Callum feels that way and why there's disagreements and stuff, but let's start things off with just the pre-show and kind of take things from there. The pre-show for this was supposed to be 2 matches, and they switched that up a little bit, and they filled it in with some other things. We had, a lot of the filler was stuff like the Iconics, just talking about the women's tag title situation, and we had a little segment that I thought was kind of interesting where EC3 was backstage flirting with Mandy Rose, and that got under Sonya Deville's skin a little bit, and they kind of set something up a little bit there that they haven't really quite fully, capitalized on, but we might see that happening over the next couple of weeks or so. We had another little segment where Zelina Vega and Carmella were talking about who is next in line for a shot at the United States Championship. Carmella, of course, endorsing R-Truth, and Andrade being the one that Zelina Vega is going behind. Well, and it was announced that the Andrade and Mysterio match had been changed. It no longer was on the kickoff. Instead, it was on the main card, and it was a fatal 4-way, including Samoa Joe and R-Truth for that United States Championship. Then we had AJ Styles talking a little bit about Kofi Kingston, how he deserves to be in the title match instead of Kevin Owens and all that. And he said something that was very interesting. He said, the strap, in regards to the WWE Championship, which is something that Vince McMahon furiously hates, apparently. And there was even a thing recently with the WrestleMania conference that they said specifically to all the people there, do not refer to it as a strap. What are you guys thinking about this? Do you think that that's something that AJ Styles just had a flub? Or do you think that he kind of did that to poke the bear a little bit? Or
I think he 100% it was a mistake, because he immediately was like, yeah, let's see if he walks through with the strap, the WWE Championship, I think it was just AJ getting caught up in the moment, speaking how he would speak, as opposed to this is the WWE universe, and I have to say this.
do you think there's going to be any kind of negative repercussions out of it? You think Vince is going to be chewing him out backstage or something?
No, I mean, the worst that could happen is he has to go to a PowerPoint presentation about, this is an actual strap. This is a championship title. These are the differences.
Something to keep our eyes on at the very least. Maybe they force him to cut some kind of a promo afterward where he's like, the WWE Championship means a lot. It's a title. Whatever. Then we had a little thing that throughout the night, that this was one of the elements to the stories being told. Kofi Kingston was called to the office of the McMahon family to talk about the WWE Championship match. That's how they constituted it. And that led into our kickoff match, which was the New Day against Rusev and Shinsuke Nakamura. New Day won by pinfall. Nothing was on the line. Nothing was, no stakes, no stipulations, anything like that. But despite it being a completely throwaway match, I liked it. Thought it was pretty good.
I thought it was a good match. I think it was very believable that Nakamura and Rusev could possibly win, because say what you want, they're still, Nakamura and Rusev. One guy just got finished challenging for the WWE Championship through the majority of last year. So I thought it was good. I think that the Kofi Kingston storyline played out really well throughout the night, and this was a good start to it. And just like notes on the pre-show overall, this was a pre-show that made me think, wow, the pre-show is worth watching. They established a lot of things on this show that really you might have been kind of lost had you not seen the show.
Well, it's a rare instance of the pre-show serving its purpose. Instead of just being 100% filler, they actually started to make it seem like it was part of the actual show.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Did you get a chance to check it out, Callum?
Oh yeah, I watched most of it. Like you say, that it was actually one of the highlights of the show for me, in the sense that it did set up a lot of stuff and it actually made a lot of sense and helped prepare, lay the groundwork for a lot of stuff we saw in the actual show itself. But in regards to the kickoff match, I thought this was really, by the New Day standards, this was a poor match, in my opinion. It went about 5 minutes too long. They kept, towards the end of it, I was just saying, okay, just go home now. You've kicked out enough stuff. It's getting a bit tiresome now. And that's kind of a running theme for me this entire show, just sitting down, waiting for something to happen. It's like, okay, can we just move on, please? Doing this, not really that interesting. Can we move on to an actual match, or move to the finish, or move on to something a bit more entertaining? Because it just got to a point where I was just sitting, watching this and going, it's good, but it doesn't mean anything, and it's not going to lead to anything going forward, besides maybe the New Day getting involved in more of the Kofi Kingston stuff leading to the championship match. But other than that, it's just eating up time.
So before we talk about specifics and all that, I kind of want to go on that train of thought here. Would you say that your issues with this pay-per-view were more so, if they would have cut out 15 minutes, it would have been a lot better? Or do you think that it's more so none of it mattered, so we didn't need to have it?
My problems with this show are widespread and different. The timing is a big issue. There's a lot of segments that I thought could have been easily cut off this show and made it half an hour shorter. And there were matches that dragged on too long, which could have been made a little bit shorter to compensate for that as well. It's just a case of WWE trying to get all their shit in. And that's it. I mean, it's fine if most of the show is also doing well in other regards, but I thought, especially for the first hour, this show was tanking really badly. So to also add a lot of time onto that as well for segments like the Elias stuff, which we'll get onto, and a kickoff show that went on a lot longer than I think it needed to, just starts to accumulate and starts to leave a bad taste in the mouth, at least on my end of things.
See, I don't know if I woke up on the right side of the bed after my 3 hours of sleep for the past 3 days, but I kind of looked at this sort of as much as it's not necessary to do any of these things, and a lot of these things could have happened on SmackDown or Raw or at Elimination Chamber. If they give me something that makes me feel like it was worth watching for a TV show, and they push something forward for WrestleMania, then I'm going to be happy with it. And that's how I kind of looked at this New Day and Rusev and Nakamura match, which was at the beginning of the night, they teased this idea of Kofi getting into the title match, and that got me interested, because first it got me annoyed, I'll have to admit, because then I was like, God damn it, I have to start changing shit already, and WWE is going to have one of these nights where they make me change 14 things, and I'm clicking on a bunch of shit and doing whatever, all of this extra work and stuff. But I was like, I'm curious if they're going to do that. And then, as much as I crapped on it ahead of time, saying the New Day and Shinsuke Nakamura and Rusev didn't have any kind of interaction on SmackDown ahead of time, and why are they fighting each other? I'm starting to think that they're building towards some kind of a multi-team kind of thing, and at least this might have been sowing a little bit of the seeds for that. So I'm erring on the side of caution of saying I'm a little bit more confident that maybe they have a game plan now, more so than they did a week ago for WrestleMania. You know what I mean? Do you get that kind of a feeling, Rob?
I think they definitely know the major parts of where they're going for WrestleMania. Maybe some of the, little bits and pieces need to be filled in, but I think they know where they're overall going.
Well, I'll ask you guys this question at the end of this, but right now, I count 16 matches for WrestleMania without factoring in certain people. So, I don't know if they're overloading things and then they're going to try to backtrack in the next couple of weeks or so, but it kind of seems like that's what they're setting up to me, and we'll kind of dissect them one by one and then round things out. But one of the ways to start things off with that is to say about the SmackDown Tag Team Championship match, which was the official kickstart of the show past the kickoff. The Usos retained against The Miz and Shane McMahon. Match itself, thought it was okay, pretty good, not horrible or anything like that, not the most amazing thing in the world, but for a Shane McMahon match where you know that he's not really going to be giving you a 5-star classic, I thought that it was like a passionate kind of thing. The Cleveland crowd really were into it, so that helped it quite a bit to me, and thought it was a good start.
Yeah. So on the kickoff, one of the other things they did was really hammer home how The Miz really wants the approval of his father. And they played into that a lot in this match, and Miz's father was there. But overall, the match itself was fun, and I loved that mid-air drop kick from Shane, who is just crazy and will do whatever he possibly can to his body in order to get across the story.
Well, can you blame the Miz's dad for being like not 100% focused on the Miz right now when his other kid Kofi is going through all that much with
Yeah, it's a hard time to be Papa Giorgio, isn't it?
I love that fucking running joke. It's so stupid. Kellen, what did you think about the match itself for SmackDown tag titles?
I thought this was a really good match. Shane was, he was as good as you'd expect him to be, which is like not great by most wrestler standards, but by his standards was like very good. The Miz had a very good babyface comeback. It amazes me how much of a babyface he's managed to become after being like just a de facto heel for so many years. And the last time they attempted to do a babyface run with him was an absolute disaster. But they've actually done it properly this time, and he's pretty beloved, at least in Cleveland. The fact that he was going for a lot of, like, he entered the ring after a hot tag with the first ever springboard move I think I've ever seen The Miz do. Just like a springboard axe handle. It's like, it's just so The Miz, like, oh my god, he's doing a springboard, but it's just an axe handle. It's like, yeah, just a little flourish onto it, and doing like splashes and a lot of other exciting moves as well. I thought he looked really good as a babyface making the comeback. And then he just went to the well one too many times with the frog splash and got caught knees into the gut and rolled up. It was a good way to finish it, which was like in a disappointing way, but not in a way where Miz loses any of his steam.
Yeah, because the Usos need to look strong too. They are going to be the tag team champions, so they can't you can't write off the Miz by making the Usos look like they were total shit. They just won by fluke or something like that. It's a competitive match. Miz makes a mistake, writes it off, and as a babyface, he at the end of the match is frustrated with himself. He's not frustrated with Shane for any kind of a disappointment like that. And they have this little celebration afterward. Now, of course, I'm explaining this to people that probably watched this event, but just in case you didn't see it, I know some people check out these instead. They have a little celebration afterward. They're all held their hands high from I was going to call Kofi's dad again. It's his dad. And that leads into Shane McMahon saying, nah, fuck that, and attacking The Miz, turning heel, which I know that I was happy about it. I know, Rob, you were happy about this.
I was surprised. I did not see this coming. I was waiting for Miz to actually beat up his dad because I thought he was going to be like, "You told me to go to the top rope. Damn it, it's your fault." And, I was waiting for that. And then to see Shane not only attack Miz, but, kind of grab Miz's dad by his face and shove him down into his chair. I thought it was really well done. And first time Shane's a heel in 13 years? So definitely a change of pace. It seems like a weird time to be watching when Shane's a heel, Vince is a heel, Stephanie's kind of just
She's
around.
Like tweener leading towards babyface right now.
And Hunter, of all people, is a full-on babyface.
Yeah, he's firm babyface. Like, there's no debating that one.
Very, very interesting dynamic. But I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed the story going into it, and I'm actually looking forward to their road to WrestleMania now.
This was a good post-match angle. The crowd were definitely firmly behind the Miz and turned on Shane immediately after the attack. I think if you'd had Miz quote unquote turn heel in this instance, then he would have just been cheered for doing it anyway because the crowd were just behind him, so they probably would have cheered if he'd attacked either his dad or Shane afterwards. But yeah, I thought this was well done. I mean, if I was the Miz, I would not have agreed to take those punches from Shane McMahon. Because it did look like he was legitimately punching him in the face and Miz was just taking it.
Probably was.
Yeah. And do the triangle choke at the end of it as well, because, he's the best in the world, so that sort of move does do damage to you. But yeah, it was a really well done situation. The fact that Shane didn't comment on it afterwards when he was being interviewed about it as well just means that it builds anticipation to hear what he has to say about it on SmackDown.
Yeah, very well done all around.
Yeah, this is the best environment to do it. Like, the Cleveland crowd ate it up. They sold it exactly the way that they were supposed to. It was like, there was no, not buying into it. It was very firmly, fuck you, Shane. Don't do that to The Miz. We love The Miz. Like, that kind of a thing. So that's a great way to really illustrate to people that The Miz is actually a babyface now. Instead of, I know we're so conditioned to the idea of The Miz being a heel that even us, we're sitting there going, yeah, but is he going to just turn heel tomorrow or something like that? And it's like, no, Miz is definitely a babyface. And that firmly, I'm using the word firmly so much today, that really puts forth the effort that when they bring this new Miz and Mrs. season and all that other kind of stuff going forward, that I'm assuming again that he moves to Monday Night Raw, that he'll be a babyface on Monday Night Raw. And that'd be kind of interesting too. Following this, we had the first of, I believe it was 3 segments throughout the night, where these little interstitials with Elias, where he did a really quick song. I think that they lasted about maybe a minute apiece or so, maybe 2 minutes, where he just sort of made fun of Cleveland and he made fun of The Miz. Just sort of like, I forget the name of it, but in like poetry, like, like plays and such, where you've got somebody that comes in and they just sort of like, the minstrels, I think, and they just sort of like play off everything and just go like, oh, well, this is what happened in the scene that you just watched and whatever. Like, we're going to set up the next scene now, that sort of thing. And we'll talk about each one a little bit, but just setting that up that happened around this point. I'm going to come back to this point a little bit later on. We'll deal with Elias at the end of this. We moved over to the SmackDown Women's Championship match. Asuka defended successfully against Mandy Rose in what I would consider half and half the worst match of the night. If not the worst match. It's kind of, I'm not sure where I'm going to lean on that one, but it was very awkward. Something didn't click on this one. And I don't know if that was just Mandy Rose not really being the most skilled yet in the ring, like she's still learning, or if their chemistry didn't work all that well, but there were some slip-ups, there was some awkwardness, it just, something was off. I didn't really like it all that much.
Yeah, definitely the worst match of the night for me. I still think that, again, playing into the pre-show, where EC3 hit on Mandy. Mandy didn't say much either way, but Sonya stepped up and cut him off, and then Sonya inadvertently cost Mandy this match. I think they're building to something there, and Asuka was never really in danger here. I think we know she's going to be champion at least through Mania. So I thought it accomplished its goal, even if it wasn't great.
I feel bad about this because I tried to big up Mandy Rose because a lot of people were against her being in this match and saying, oh, it's just another like Barbie doll that can't actually wrestle properly. And then she goes and really shits the bed in this match. Like it just wasn't good. I mean, it's not entirely her fault. Asuka wasn't at her peak either. They kind of played this storyline where, like Asuka was pretty much in control of all thing and essentially toying with Mandy at different points of the stage. And Mandy would occasionally get a high knee into the face of Asuka to get a pinfall and maybe take control for a little while. But basically, the rest of the time, Asuka was in control. And then you have this part of the end where Sonya first of all goes under the apron and doesn't find anything. At least I don't think she found anything. I might have like forgotten that side of things, but
no, I don't think she did. I don't remember
yeah.
grabbing anything.
So she went under and just didn't get anything, and then she goes under the other time, gets a kendo stick, and Mandy trips over the apron on an Irish whip, which looked pretty awkward. Like it didn't actually look like he tripped her at all. She was okay. I'm about to trip on this one, so I better make sure. Oh, I tripped just before it, but I'll just try and sell it anyway. And then just gets immediately kicked in the face and loses. I think the EC3 stuff. I mean, EC3 at the moment is in a contender for me as the worst ever debuting person they've ever had. In the sense of his character is awful and he's a total geek. In the sense that he tried hitting on Mandy Rose and then got immediately shot down by Sonya Deville. And it's just, I guess it'd be fine if he was James Ellsworth, but he's supposed to be EC3. It's just, it's bizarre the way they've booked him so far. And I wouldn't be surprised if they were going down the route of Sonya being in love with Mandy Rose.
Oh yeah, that has to be the case.
Which I think is an interesting tack to take. I'm surprised they haven't. Well, I'll say surprised. It's a very, very, very fine line to cross, and it's something that WWE need to play off very naturally. And because anytime WWE has gone down the LGBT route, they've been so ham-fisted about it in the past. And to be fair, the last time they really attempted that was, I mean, they tried to give that gimmick to Maurice for a while, but then they went PG. They haven't really tried to do it since they went in the PG era.
Closest thing to it's been that 1 week where they sort of teased that with Sasha and Bayley. And that could have just been conjecture. It could have just been people reading into it a little bit too much.
Oh, yeah,
but...
just one of them saying, I love you to them, and then just thought, oh my God, they're like a couple. And no, people can just say that and not be romantically linked to each other.
Well, it was the inflection with which Sasha said it.
Like, it was the whole, like, I'm always going to love you. There's, like, this tension kind of a thing and all that. And I think it was more so just her delivery.
I would have said the more closely related on was the stuff they did with Paige and AJ Lee at some point as well.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
They tried doing that sort of, like, weird kissing the hand stuff or whatever. But, yeah, I totally would be for it. I mean, Sonya is the only, like, openly lesbian, like, wrestler they've ever had. And it'd be fine to play into the character because I'm pretty sure anyone who watches the product regularly knows that part of her story. And if they played it off tastefully, then I'm totally for it. But it's just whether they do that or not. And whether it even ends up going down that route, it might just be a case of like Sonya is in love with Mandy, but Mandy doesn't reciprocate that, and that ends up with them like leading to their split.
Yeah, or this could just be one of those not matches, but this could be one of those storylines where they want to tease that, and it doesn't go anywhere, and we just kind of are taken along for a ride for no reason.
Yeah,
could very well happen like that.
But I thought it was just like the match itself was poor, and I thought it was a little bit like poor structuring to have another match immediately after a match where two tag team partners split up to have one where two tag team partners didn't actually split up but looked on the verge of splitting up or at least like in trouble.
Another thing I noticed, the show was a little light on the Raw end of things. I heard a lot of Tom Phillips and not a lot of Michael Cole tonight, and that was just something I noticed.
That was one of the plus
as the-
points. Yeah.
That was just something I noticed as the show progressed. But if they do go down that route with Sonya and Mandy, I think it'll be something akin to Mickey and Trish, and then they'll they'll test it out. If it doesn't go too well, they'll probably just drop it.
Also, I have to say, like in the commentary side of things, like Tom Phillips did a good job, like throughout the night, especially because he was calling most of the matches. But Corey Graves needs to stop commentating on Mandy Rose matches because it's getting like to just borderline like sex offender territories at this point with some of the stuff that he say.
It's very Instagram comments on a quote unquote social media influencer vibe.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, he's not Jerry Lawler, but he's as close to Jerry Lawler as you could get without being like really hounded at this point in time.
You know what I'm worried about with this thing though, more than anything, because I can write this off as just being like a kind of shit match, and you know, Mandy Rose for this one, it was like, all right, she's going to be fed to Asuka, or they're going to make some major mistake and put the title on her or something like that. But I'm worried that they think that a good option for Asuka at WrestleMania will be a triple threat between those three. I don't want Sonya versus Mandy versus Asuka.
I had the same feeling, and then I thought, there's no way they're going to put a triple threat on top of a triple threat in this case, when they know that one of the two is likely going to be the first women's main event of WrestleMania.
To be honest, considering some of the other options available, I'm not against it. Especially considering the fact that it seems that they're still pushing Lacey Evans into that sort of slot at the moment, just trying to kind of force her into it.
Well, see, Lacey Evans hasn't really done too much specifically for the Asuka thing. She's just kind of popped up in a bunch of random spots. There's only one time that she actually did anything with Asuka, and there's been, I don't know, a dozen of these by now, so other than the idea that there's really no options for Asuka and Lacey Evans has to do something at some point, there's nothing that's specifically tying her to that. And I'm getting a little hesitant to believe that she's necessarily the person that's in that way. I kind of think that people are reading into it a little bit too much, and they might do some kind of a triple threat. Because, you know, we were talking about it before. It hasn't stopped them before from doing triple threats and fatal four ways, like, all over the place. Especially if we've got potentially a 16, 17, 18 match card going on. I don't know. It's just something to keep your eyes peeled about. If not, I mean, we're not going to get Sonya Deville versus Mandy Rose at WrestleMania. It's not happening. So, maybe those two are going to be the final two in the Women's Battle Royal. And maybe that kind of comes down to a little bit of that. I don't know.
Well, it depends on what they want to do with the tag titles.
Yeah. Very interesting. At least in that regard. So backstage, the New Day talks to Vince McMahon. And they, you know, kind of say like, yo, the fuck? And Vince goes, all right. And so he, the wording that he had said during the segment, if I remember correctly, it was, you've convinced me. The WWE Championship match is now a triple threat. And Kofi, if I were you, I would get ready because that match is starting next.
He said your match is starting next.
Your match. Okay, that's better then. Because when he said that match, when I thought that he said that match,
I mean, he could have said that. I think that was what his intention was. But with Vince McMahon, he just says words at the moment.
Yeah. So he probably should have said your, because that made more sense. Because what ended up happening was Kofi Kingston comes out. We're getting ready for that WWE Championship match, and Greg Hamilton is called over. And hey, things change. You know, plans change, pal. And instead, he says, this is going to be a handicap match, and out come the Bar. And despite the New Day trying to help out a little bit there, the Bar defeat Kofi Kingston. And, you know, pisses the crowd off. And I liked it. I thought that it was a stupid segment that did exactly what it was supposed to do. Like, it was the type of booking that if you were to tell me in any other context that they did this, I would think this was absolutely ridiculous. But the entire point of this was to piss people off into setting them up into the way of he's got to get this WrestleMania match. And it didn't take anything away from the thing. That's the key here. It's not, let's have Brock Lesnar beat Roman Reigns 5 times over the course of another year and take away all the potential of all the Universal Championship matches to further push it along. We're talking a matter of a couple of weeks. And the alternative is Kofi gets the WrestleMania match. So it didn't take anything away from me. And I actually thought that this gave the bar a little bit of a boost. And if we're going to get potentially a bunch of tag teams on SmackDown together, the bar needed a little bit of a boost, I think. So they look like assholes now. I think that this gives momentum on both sides. I liked it.
I thought that this was really, really well done, from Kofi just standing backstage in front of the McMahon office, and Woods and Big E, using logic, go up to him and go, "What are you still doing here? That was an hour ago." And he goes, "Well, I've been knocking on the door." And then they go in, and Vince just goes, "Well, I've been waiting on him. What do you mean?" Like, everything that they're doing with Vince McMahon is so in your face. I'm the boss. I can do whatever I want. And it's working so well. And this WrestleMania, they actually have a pair of superstars that people want to see in the positions that they're going to be in. And as far as the handicap match, it made the bar look good, and they weren't even going to be anywhere near this show. It made Rusev and Nakamura look like assholes when they took out the New Day. And it, really built up the New Day as these underdog baby faces. It's perfect.
Tell us why you hated it, Callum.
The explanations that you guys give is totally fine in regards of the actual setup for it. The idea that Kofi was screwed over again, it's a great way to draw heat. My main issue is the fact that it's something that WWE just does. They just get heat over and over and over again, to the point where this one works really well. And I will not deny the fact that it's worked really well, especially when you come onto the WWE Championship match we'll talk about. My issue with it was that it was so fucking long. Again, I mean, what you had to do in this one is you have Kofi get a little bit of fire going, have the bar take over for a bit, Kofi gets a little bit of fire again, and then the bar wins. That's all you had to do. And you could get that accomplished in about 3-4 minutes. Like this one, you had to drag it out for 6-7 minutes. It felt at least that long. And then New Day comes out and they get attacked by it. It's just the crowd is getting more and more angry. And I know that's kind of the point, but it's another fine line situation where you want the crowd to be angry at it, but that also makes the crowd angry at the rest of the card, and they're angry at the show in general. And I genuinely think this, I mean, I might be totally wrong and I might be off piece here, but I think this killed the crowd. And I think this killed the crowd up until the Shield match. Because the crowd was they were really excited after the Miz stuff, and the turn had got them a little excited. But it's the idea of that match, and then you had the Mandy Rose Asuka match, which wasn't that great, and had another partner disagreement towards the end. And then this happened, where it's really starting to irritate the crowd now, and you're starting to play into a dangerous game. It's like, are you willing to sacrifice the quality of the show and the quality of the audience to proceed your storyline? And if you are, and it works out because people are more annoyed that Kofi wasn't involved in the main event, that's great. But I thought it dragged far too long, and it kind of just ruined a bit of enjoyment. I think it hurt the next few matches that came along after it.
See, I feel like they did the right call by the next 2 matches that follow it. I think that they offset that.
I think they tried to offset it. I don't think it worked. I think it worked slightly more for the Fatal 4-Way match. I think the Triple Threat match really suffered because of it.
Maybe, yeah. I mean,
it's all
I'd have to go back and probably listen to them because I'm working on a lot of things at the same time. I might have missed something like that.
I mean, it's the price you pay for this sort of stuff. I mean, I'm not saying that it won't be worth it in the end, because Kofi is a lot feels very, very like it's organic, what the fans want. But the main part that makes me go along that line is the chant, "This is boring."
That's true. They did do that.
Because you wouldn't be chanting that if you were just angry with the situation. You'd be chanting that because what they're doing is really just irritating you that this is going on for far too long. So that was my big issue with it, was the sense of, okay, it's fine in terms of the context of the story, but why not make it a bit more of a wild brawl where Kofi is just trying to take him away as quickly as possible because he knows what situation he's in, and then just have the bar overwhelm him. New Day comes out, they get dealt with, and then it's just over. Why'd you have to drag it on for as long as you did?
Fair enough. I get where you're coming from that.
Yeah, that's fair.
So following this, Elias pops up again.
And hang on a sec. I want to talk about this Bayley and Sasha Banks interview.
Oh, that happened right here?
Yes,
I didn't bother put that down on my notes.
Well, I wanted to quote onto the fact that Sasha Banks says that the titles were everything that Bayley and Sasha Banks had worked for, even though they didn't exist when they were obviously kids and stuff like that. It's like, this is everything we've ever worked for, even though these titles didn't exist until a couple of months ago. And then Bayley also does that rhyme thing in the end. It's like, no one has a connection like the Boss and Hug connection. Well done, you rhymed connection with connection. That was amazing.
So the one takeaway I had from this promo was I enjoyed the continuity of them actually following up on the Kofi thing, saying, don't give up, Kofi. You inspire us. I enjoyed that because you don't see a lot of that crossover. And the promos are cheesy, but I'm just glad that in a world that is very much dominated by what's Ronda doing at Mania, that they do have a spot in the division right now. So, I'm kind of letting it slide.
To be perfectly honest, I didn't pay much attention to it. I was like, they should yak about how this means so much to them and whatever. It's just kind of, that's why I didn't even write it down. I forgot that it even existed. Instead, after that, Elias popped up again. This time he was just kind of like, New Day. And it just kind of reminded people, a little pinpoint on that. Again, we'll talk about a little bit more about that later.
This is when I started writing, oh my god, get on with this fucking show already.
This is when I wrote up a slide about the highlight of the night, Elias. So we're going to disagree on those things. And we had the Raw Tag Team Championship match. Was a triple threat match. The Revival on one side. On another corner, you got Chad Gable and Bobby Roode. On another corner, you got Aleister Black and Ricochet. And on another corner, nobody, because it wasn't a Four Corners match. But the Revival did what we were saying that they were going to do. They pinned... it was Scott Dawson pinned Chad Gable. And post-match, they did a little bit of a brawl where it ended up being Adam Black. Wow. Aleister Black and Ricochet that were standing tall in the end. So the overall theme of this became the Revival get a win for, first time in a while. Gable and Roode were the sacrificial lambs. Black and Ricochet didn't lose, and they looked strong in the end. I thought that the match was really good, and that they made good decisions just like start to finish.
I agree. And one thing I do want to shout out is the tag that Gable gave to Ricochet right as he's flipping out of the ring to set up the finishing spot was one of the best timed tags I've ever seen in one of these matches. Because I don't care for these, it's a triple threat, but one team is on the apron at all times, and I'm not a fan of that. But the way that they handled it here, I thought it was pretty good. And yeah, the NXT guys look strong. They don't lose, and they ended up laying everybody out. I definitely think we're getting tag team turmoil, if not two of them at least, for the Raw Tag Team Championship.
Okay, so here's a mixed bag situation here for me as well. Well, just you guys really enjoyed it, so this is going to be only me doing this mixed bag thing. First of all, the entrances took far too long. Again, this is just me just looking at the time thing and just start going, oh my god, we've just had this live segment and this Bayley and Sasha interview and this Shane not giving an interview. oh, finally we get into a wrestling match, and oh, these entrances are going on forever. And then they cut to the international commentators, like, fucking hell, get on with it. And then they spend 6-7 minutes putting the heat on Ricochet. It's like, I just want to see after all these matches where I just saw a guy that's like one of the biggest baby faces right now just getting beaten down for what felt like 20 minutes. All I want to see is like a fast-paced, action-packed tag team match, and the most action-packed guy on the entire card is being beaten down the entire time. Just go, oh, please, just get on with it. And that's probably just me being like, at this point, being quite churlish about it. And I completely hold my hands up to that. It's like me just going, oh, I just really wanted to see something that was just high action, high octane the entire time. And they had a story to tell, and they ended up telling it. And the match did like build into a nice crescendo with Aleister Black coming in. Like there was this awesome spot where you have Black hitting a Meteora, and then he's hit with a rolling German, and then Wilder hits a big splash onto Chad Gable, and then Ricochet hits a shooting star press onto Wilder. It was like, that was just like an awesome sequence of stuff to do. But even then, I was starting to get a sense that the crowd was pretty dead at this point and was only slowly starting to get picked up, because usually that sort of thing would get, like, maybe not a standing ovation, but maybe just start a "This is awesome" chant. I'm just sort of thing that people are conditioned to do, and they just gave it like a quite polite round of applause and then just sat back down. And you had this situation where Ricochet tried a Hurricane Rana from the top rope onto Dawson, and he, I don't know what side of that, like, messed it up a little bit, but they both just landed hard on the apron and were almost caught by the people outside. So it was just a little bit reckless on that side of things. And then the Revival win, and then they have a post-match brawl where the NXT's guys stand on top. Like, I'm happy that the NXT guys ended up on top and they've actually pushed these guys well, but at the end of the day, who are they going to beat if they are going to become the tag team champions when the Revival would book so terribly? It's like, oh, the Revival finally got a win after so many weeks of just losing matches, and then their win is immediately overshadowed by them being attacked and beaten up. Just like, way to make your like big champions look strong. It's going to feel really important when Ricochet finally beat these losers.
Part of me kind of feels like the way that they've treated the Revival recently has been hesitantly trying to keep them. Like, they were like, all right, we don't want you to leave. We're going to give you the tag titles, but we're going to be so fucking pissy about us having to try to do something we don't want to do that we're also going to fuck you over still. It gives me that kind of an impression. That's like not going to lead to them re-signing with the company.
And at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, it's down to them at the end of the day. But if I was in one of their shoes and I was being treated that way, I wouldn't be. That would be just convincing me to leave more.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just,
once you sign the contracts, they're taking those titles off of you and not using you anymore.
Yeah, it was just, it feels like, because it's not what they want. They obviously want to be champions and they want to be like big deals, but what they want more than that is for like tag team wrestling to be treated as a big deal. And so they don't really mind that. I'm sure, well, it's down to them actually, so I can't speak for them, but if I was in their position, I wouldn't mind if I was the tag team champions or not, as long as the tag teams were being featured. And at least with Black and Ricochet, there has been a bit more of a spotlight onto tag team wrestling on both sides of things. But it just feels like they're just, like, you kind of like feel like you're giving them with one hand but taking away with all the others.
One step forward, two steps back.
But at the end of the day, I think they get their WrestleMania moment, and I think whatever the decision's going to be, that they've already made it, even if they have the championships or not. So we'll see what happens with them when their contracts expire.
Well, to piggyback off of something I mentioned before about the idea of me having 16 matches written down for WrestleMania already, one of them that I'm just sort of question marked about is the Raw Tag Team titles, because I can't really imagine that Revival, Gable, Roode, whatever, like that they're just going to throw these people together and think that that's good enough and whatever. But then again, maybe they just don't care. The only people I can see really fighting the Revival right now are either they just do Aleister Black and Ricochet again, which I don't think that Black and Ricochet, and especially not Gargano, I don't think that they're going to be wrestling at WrestleMania necessarily. It wouldn't shock me at all if they don't, and that they're just using them to kind of like be interesting until WrestleMania comes around. But even if that's the case, like Heavy Machinery is the only one that makes any sense to me. And if the Revival versus Heavy Machinery is the match they're going to go with, I like both those teams to a certain extent. I like Revival more, but that's pre-show fodder in my mind. That's not WrestleMania, And I can't imagine that the WWE is looking at that and going, "That's our WrestleMania ticket right there." Tucker Knight and Otis Dozovic against the two guys that we don't want to fucking push for 4 years,
Well, who's to say that they don't end up doing, the stupidity that they did last year, where it just becomes, well, here's a makeshift team of, Big Show and Braun Strowman. I don't know. Just
Might be.
like, there's always that potential because WWE doesn't give a shit about tag team wrestling. If they did, they would bother to, call these teams by their names and not just Gable and Rude or Sasha and Bailey. They don't care about tag teams. And I think that always shows itself in WrestleMania because you always get a tag team turmoil instead of a 2-on-2 match.
I mean, maybe this is the statement to put out there, but does this have to be an important match?
It doesn't have to, but we're all so kind of like conditioned that WrestleMania should, in theoretical, terms, be every match the most biggest possible match that they possibly can.
Well,
and when you,
I was gonna say, I blame people for being conditioned that way, then, or like them for conditioning people in that way to some extent, then, because realistically, I mean, I don't know where this conditioning came from, because I remember, well, don't really remember, but like, because I wasn't watching at that point in time, but going back in time and watching some old WrestleManias and stuff like that, and a lot of the matches were just matches.
The first 9 WrestleManias, I would say.
Well, look at like WrestleMania 2000. WrestleMania 2000 is a bunch of tag team matches and a bunch of multi-man matches, and that's like, wow, this is a real big deal, isn't it? It's like, I don't see where this activation comes from that every match has to be a big super feud building into the last thing. Some matches just need to be good matches.
In my opinion, that mentality came at the start of the Ruthless Aggression era. Like, if you look at 19 and you look at, like, there's 5 or 6 matches on that show that are like, wow, these are major matches. And I think that's when the mentality started.
Well,
but tag teams in particular have always kind of gotten the shaft, except for, when they were in a situation like a TLC and then they had no choice but to steal the show,
Well, even something with like the New Age Outlaws against Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie, like, you weren't going to go with the headbangers there, so they created a situation to make that feel like a better match, and it became a dumpster match. So that felt
that's
bigger.
Fair, but that's also suggesting that this is back when WWE only had 4 titles.
Right. They split the difference and they run themselves thin, and then they go, well, now we kind of spread ourselves too thin to be able to actually put the effort into some of those things.
It's just a case of, like, if people are ever expecting WWE to change the mentality while Vince McMahon's in charge about tag team wrestling, then they're barking up the wrong tree. It's just a sense of, like, people can keep saying over and over again that tag teams are better and we should have a big feud for tag championship. But if you wanted to see that sort of thing, then you shouldn't be watching WWE. If that's your big thing that you want to, like, lay your hat on, I'm not saying that any of us are, but if other people want to lay their hat on that, then they literally are watching the wrong product. It's just like, you watch NXT treats their tag teams right for the most part, but it's like, and watch other promotions treat it well as well, but you can't watch WWE and expect that to happen.
Well, I have a little bit of a theory about this, and I'll talk about it later. Well, something that popped in my mind. Let's see, what did we go over there? We went to the United States Championship match, the Fatal 4-Way that I mentioned to earlier in the night that had changed from the Andrade match with Mysterio. Very good match, I thought. No complaints whatsoever to me. I thought that it was funny that R-Truth brought up the whole 5-knuckle shuffle thing, because they're really kind of hitting home that whole John Cena thing. He hits it on Samoa Joe, which of course makes me go more so with, looks like Samoa Joe is fighting John Cena at WrestleMania. Rey Mysterio plays his part really well. He's been so much better this time around. Like, that time away really helped him out, because that last little bit, a couple years he was in WWE before, he was really struggling, and now he's so much better again. And Andrade did his stuff too, and I liked it. Right person won.
This was likely my favorite match of the night, with the exception of maybe one other that we'll talk about later. Rey Mysterio is so good, and this is a return to, like, wow, if I didn't know how long he's been doing this, I'd think this is a hot superstar that can carry the company for the next few years. Like, Rey in this match was just off the charts. The Hurricanranas off the Doomsday Device position, the springboards. This is like, 96, 97 Rey. Like, was really pushing it to deliver his best performance. And my God, of all the matches I want at WrestleMania, even if it's on the kickoff, give him and Andrade like a 2 out of 3 falls, and just let them. I know they did that on SmackDown, but let them do something, because these two are on just a great level right now, and that needs to be showcased at WrestleMania.
This was definitely one of the best matches on the entire show, and it was. I think it was better than the match they had on SmackDown, and that match on SmackDown was great as well. Mysterio was on top form. I've wanted to christen this match like Hurricane Mysterio, because of the amount of Hurricane Rana still was hitting on everybody. R-Truth is, for a guy of his age, is so like good and in such great like physical condition. Andrade is as technically proficient as you possibly get, and Samoa Joe is probably the best wrestler that's going at the moment in WWE. And I know that's stacking quite a high bar at this point, and there's a lot of people that could stake that claim, but I don't think anyone gets it like Joe gets it. And like from the second of I think it was just a couple of minutes into the match where he's just staring at the outside. It's just the look that he gives when he's staring at the outside, and then just charges for the suicide dive out to everyone. It was just brilliant.
And I'm gonna pile on to that. He didn't just do the typical forearm smash suicide. He did a flip so that he legitimately tumbled onto all 3 people and took them out. And the way that he moved from the finisher that Rey was going to do and just locked him into the clutch, and Rey immediately passes out. So everything about this match was top notch. Can't complain one bit.
I love the role that both Selena Vega and Carmella played as well in it as well, in the sense that they both were fighting on the outside, and that distraction almost allowed for the same finish to happen, that where Joe just hits a Uranagi on someone and gets a pinfall, but they broke it up so the match continued. So that was a nice callback to the previous match. I don't think there was anything bad. The only thing that I would say that was a little bit odd was obviously Mysterio hits 619, goes for the splash, gets immediately caught into the clutch and passes out within 2 seconds. I've seen Joe and wrestle basically everyone in that thing, and it takes about 2 minutes for someone to pass out to that thing, and Mysterio's just out like a light immediately. It's like, oh my God, he just managed to just get his jugular immediately and just make him pass out.
Well, Callum, they heard your woes and we're like, we got to make this quicker.
Yeah.
Well, that's why this was one of the better matches on the card. They knew it didn't overstay its welcome.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this quite a bit. And I said this before with the tag title thing on one of my posts. I can't remember which one. I write too many things at the same time. But I said, it's amazing what happens when you get people that are talented in the ring. You put them in the ring, tell them to have a match, and then they have a talented, good match,
I think it's quite interesting that Truth wasn't pinned in this one. Joe's pinned Andrade and Mysterio to win and then retain the championship. I think Truth has got to have a rematch on SmackDown at some point.
Yeah, I think that he's going to pick a fight, and they're just going to book that. And one-on-one Samoa Joe versus R-Truth, he beats down R-Truth. Maybe even that's how they bring the John Cena thing in there. Maybe he's like, I'm looking for inspiration from my hero, John Cena, and then Cena comes out and makes a save or something like that. That could be the case.
The funniest thing I heard all night was Zelina call John Cena R-Truth childhood hero, because it's like R-Truth is so close to 50 and he moves great, he looks great, and he's another one who is a very underrated character. As far as Joe potentially fighting Cena, I hope Joe wins because I see no reason for Cena to have another U.S. title reign. So that's just my opinion on that one.
There's only two options. Samoa Joe wins, and that's the end of it. Or Cena wins, he does the U.S. Open Challenge on Raw or SmackDown and loses it. That's the only way that they do it.
Yeah.
And I don't want that, like, hot potato. But they might. I don't know. Right now, it's definitely looking like, now that they've kind of pushed these people away, less and less likely that they're going to do some kind of, like, six-man match or, you know, four corners match or something like that. I definitely think it's going to be Joe and Cena, which also means that I can no longer think that they're going to try to piggyback off of that whole Drew McIntyre type thing or do a Kurt Angle thing or whatever. That seems like they're just going to go with Cena against Joe, and you know what? Cool with that. Again, we'll talk WrestleMania a little bit later. The Women's Tag Team Championship match was the Boston Hug Connection. I hate that name so much. Against the team of Nia Jax and Tamina. Really quick note that I had written down to myself from earlier. Tamina's music hit, and I was like, who the fuck's coming out? Because they never play her music. She's always out with somebody else. Tamina has pretty much been tied to somebody else her entire career. She's been with Team Bad. She was with Lana. She was with the Usos. She's with Nia Jax now. AJ Lee. Like, she's always just, like, the side person.
That's what her nickname should be. The Anchor.
Oh, no, the Anchor, like, holds things down and makes sure that it works well.
Yeah, she pulls things down. She pulls matches down.
If you go with the sinking Anchor, then, yeah, that kind of a thing. This wasn't a complete train wreck, but it wasn't good. This is my second worst match of the night, if not the worst.
I would definitely agree that it wasn't good, and the finish of it came out of nowhere, where it was just like that Frankensteiner by Bailey and the 1-2-3. Sasha and Bailey are trying so hard to be like, we're a tag team and we do tag team moves, and don't get me wrong, I love that, but it just, in this match in particular, it came across so obvious that they're just overly trying to get over the fact that, you know, tag team wrestling, because it came across like, if I was going to compare it to a men's situation, like the Revival were fighting Kane and the Big Show, you know, like, where they're just, here's this big team, and it's just like, yeah, but we're tag team specialists, we can overcome, and I would have been into that, except, you know, the other team is Tamina and Nia Jax, and I did notice quite a few botches, like that Samoan drop, which I really wish that they would have countered out of instead of insisting on going for that Samoan drop after it was so badly botched.
Or when, I think it was Bailey had jumped to the outside, and no, Sasha, I think, jumped to the outside.
Yeah.
And Tamina falls, and Nia Jax is like, no, we're supposed to hold on to her and whatever, and they just cut away real quick and then stand back up, and yeah.
Yeah, so definitely not my favorite match. I love the post-match angle. Not gonna lie. Thought that was really good. And I'm assuming you want to take it from here, Tony?
Well, Callum, what did you think about the match?
That was appalling. Absolutely appalling. I'm not going to mince words about it. I'm not going to say, oh, it's not my favourite match because it's the women's tag team titles and blah, 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 blah. This match fucking sucked. And Tamina and Nia Jax just need to retire. Well, Nia Jax needs to, go back to NXT, and Tamina needs to retire. At least Nia Jax is salvageable to a certain degree. But yeah, it's just like that Samoan drop spot, the fact where Tamina just fell over while trying to catch Sasha Banks. You have this giant woman who's catching the other side of you, and you fall over. You Like, I know her knees don't work anymore because she barely moves around the ring anymore. So it's like, it must be hard to pick up anything at this point in time. But it was just, yeah, it was just a really, like, for the first women's like title defense, this is shoddy. And the sad thing about it is, I don't know who you could put in that match to make it better. Like, the only team that I can think of at the moment that would have made, like, put on a better showing in this one would have been Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. You've already got Mandy Rose in the other title match.
What about
Like,
the Riot Squad?
Nah.
Potentially, but it's just a case of, like, that match has been seen so many times. I know this match has kind of been seen a few times as well, but it would have been better, but it wouldn't have been interesting. I mean, this match was, it wasn't even just like Nia Jax Tamina. Again, this is another case of like crowd death because there were two hot tags in this match, and I don't think either of them got any reaction. It's like the tag was just made, and then they just came in, and you expect to have like, oh wow, it's exciting, they'd come in, but I just didn't hear anything. Just like, wow, the tag's just been made, and okay, they're just going. The post-match stuff was more interesting, but even that was shoddy.
That's suspect because, for anybody who didn't see it, what happened here was Beth Phoenix was ringside. She was doing guest commentary, sort of. And Tamina and Nia Jax, they got all pissed off after losing, so they just, beat the crap out of Bayley and Sasha Banks because, obviously, if they would have been able to do that throughout the whole match, they would have won. But, whatever, we're just suspension of disbelief, just like the idea that they won the match to begin with because, Bayley's going to punch Nia Jax and she's going to totally get her out of the, whatever.
Can I just say, that, before you just move on, that was the third post-match attack on this card.
Yeah. So they're beating them down. Beth Phoenix comes over to them and basically says, like, yo, the fuck, again. And she gets her ass beaten down as well. Natalya comes out to try to make the save, and Natalya gets her ass beaten down. So here's my positive, my negative, and my middle of the road for this. My positive was, hey, at least it was something interesting, and that's kind of neat that we'll probably see Beth Phoenix wrestle again. My negative was, oh god, they made it look like Nia Jax and Tamina are going to be in this feud still going forward, and I really don't want to see that again because, first off, I don't want to see some like triple threat or fatal 4-way or 6-team match or something, and I just don't like Nia Jax and Tamina. So I really would have been much happier if it would have been Jax and Tamina were trying to do this, and then Natalya and Beth took out Nia Jax and Tamina. And my middle of the road was, I guess this means we're not getting Trish and Lita.
Okay, so I started to have this idea during the pre-show when Beth said she'd be on commentary, that what if instead of trying to build a like a standard match like with the men's tag, they just go, we're not even gonna do a fatal 4-way. We're gonna have Sasha and Bayley take on all comers in a tag team turmoil. That can get you Nia and Tamina, Beth, Natalya. That can even get you through the Bella Twins, the Sky Pirates and Trish and Lita. That can get you through anybody because it's just a gauntlet and you don't know who's coming. So I was having that idea on the pre-show, and now I'm really having that idea because I don't think that if they're going to do a 4-way, that 2 of the challenger spots are going to be taken up by Beth and Natalya and Tamina and Nia.
See, I can't see them doing a question mark, mysterious opponent type of thing for this because they would want to advertise those legends from coming back.
I guess they still can.
I immediately got the sense this is going to lead into a fatal 4-way. It's Bayley and Sasha, Nia Jax and Tamina, Beth and Natalya, and the Iconics. Because of the stuff they did on the pre-show. I think I feel pretty safe that that's going to be the match.
Is it wrong that of those 4, I really would like to see Beth and Natalya win it?
Yes, you should. I mean,
what really sucks about that though is it's like, god damn it, you went out of your way to say these are going to be defended on Raw and SmackDown and NXT, and you're not going to include the NXT team just because you wanted Nia Jax and Tamina in there, which pretty much means just because you wanted Nia Jax in there, which pretty much also goes back to, weren't you supposed to be fucking pissed about her for potentially ruining your Becky Lynch thing, or are you just now looking at this as being like, hey, thanks for fucking up. It helped our main event of WrestleMania. You know?
Well, Tony, they are punishing her in the sense that she's losing all of these matches. Like, she might be getting all of these title shots and opportunities, and she probably will have a feature match for WrestleMania, because at the end of the day, whether we like her or not, or anything along those lines, or she does fuck up, she does get a lot of attention as well. And there are a lot of people that like stand like firmly behind Nia Jax and defend her vehemently. And there's also the sense of, well, she took the pin in this match as well. She lost a singles match to Bayley on Raw as well, so she's not winning any matches. But there's also, I mean, the funniest thing about this entire situation, besides the fact of Nia Jax attempting a leg drop and almost knocking Tamina off the apron in the process.
Oh, that was funny as fuck. Yeah, I forgot about that. That was awesome.
Is just the idea of, I guess it's just a sense of like, it felt like a discount. Like, oh, we couldn't get Trish and Lita, so we'll get Beth Phoenix to come out of retirement for this match and give Natalya something to do as well.
Yeah, like, I don't know if they're really going into this thinking that is something that they're saving for, like, SummerSlam, or if they couldn't get Trish and Lita, and they were looking at, like, well, why don't we do this instead, or something like that, like...
Yeah.
Because rumor has it, which, look, I don't buy into this rumor at all. Not in the slightest bit, but it has been spoken about through the dirt sheets and everything. Some people have reported that the original plan for WrestleMania was Natalya against Ronda Rousey in the main event. I cannot, under any circumstances, think...
Who reported that?
Oh, that was going around, like,
I don't buy
2
that
months ago
for
or
a
so.
minute.
I didn't for the slightest bit, because to me, I was like, you mean to tell me that they would have gone with Natalya over Charlotte? Fuck you. Like, no. There is no way that they would have done that.
Well, the way that is reported is the idea of, like, it switched around multiple times, that Charlotte was always the original idea, but then they toyed with the idea of putting Natalya into the situation where Natalya was to turn heel after being, like, friends with Rousey the entire time, and that building up from there. And then it switched to Lynch, and then it switched to Charlotte again, and then it switched to the Triple Threat, and so it's changed multiple times. I'm not entirely convinced by that being the case, but again, I wouldn't be. I can't say I would be totally surprised if Natalya had been brought up at one point, and I wouldn't be surprised if Natalya had been brought up just because Ronda Rousey asked that it would be Natalya.
It more than likely, to me, what happened with that kind of scenario, if it was anything at all, Natalya pitched it, and or they said to the, they were just like sitting around the conference table and they were going, well, we got to think of some alternatives because, well, let's put it this way. I don't think WWE thinks of alternatives for a lot of these matches, but for some of the bigger matches that they would have been like, look, we're getting Ronda. We know we're doing something like that. If we can't do Ronda and Charlotte, what do we do? And then probably somebody would have been like, well, let's say Charlotte gets injured. We got Becky. We got Bayley. We got Natalya. We could do something with one of those. That's the only thing I could see being the case. And if that is the case, if they did in any capacity think that Natalya was a possibility for that match, then maybe they did say to them, well, we can't give you that, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to get you and Beth together and we're going to do that. But I'm okay with the idea of that too. Like Beth and Natalya against Sasha and Bayley, that's cool. I just don't want Nia Jax and Tamina involved. And as much as I do think that the Iconics have something to offer, I don't want them to be involved in this either. Especially if it's going to be with Nia Jax and Tamina. At that point, give me Boston Hug Connection against... What did they call themselves, Beth and Natty?
The Divas of Doom. Yeah.
Ugh.
But you can't call yourselves that because you're not Divas anymore.
Oh, yeah, that's on the banned list of words.
What if they call themselves Total Divas of Doom?
No, you add that total in there, then it totally makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where I'm going with this. Like, they made a point to make Nia Jax and Tamina look strong, and I'm like, fuck you, I don't want to see it. Like, that ruined it for me.
Yeah. Well, maybe it'll just be a case that they have a match with Natalya and Beth Phoenix on Raw, and that's the number one contenders match.
I hope that's the case. And
but
then
even
they
if
just
that
get
is the
thrown into
case,
the Battle Royal.
But even if that is the case, then the SmackDown women are getting a bit shafted at this point. At least they should have a title shot at this point.
That's the main reason I don't want to see just a triple threat or anything of the sort, because SmackDown does deserve a spot. So does NXT. I am 100% for more of Beth Phoenix. I think she got shafted in her career and deserves to have a little bit of time in this new era where all of the women seem to care about wrestling, or at least the majority of them. But I definitely would rather see something like a gauntlet where Sasha and Bayley can have small matches with all of these different teams.
Yeah, I'm not into that idea, just because that means there's virtually nobody for the Battle Royal, and also it will take far too much time. It will either take far too much time, or you're just going to have a load of 2-minute matches, and people think that you're shitting on the women because of that.
Which at this point, if we have 17 matches on the card, then we're going to get short matches as it is.
But you're
Which at least Brock
forgetting
Lesnar will fucking like that.
you have a 2-hour pre-show with a 5-hour card. Like
Yeah, but
it's still too long to do that.
I think that the most matches that we've had so far at WrestleMania was 15.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
that took over the 7 hours that they gave to the previous WrestleMania.
I don't know. We have a triple threat match for the WWE Championship that was advertised earlier in the night. Daniel Bryan, Kevin Owens, and not Kofi Kingston. Instead, it's Mustafa Ali. Now, here's where I'm going to go back and forth between a couple different things here. I get where they're coming from, but they fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I know the point of this was, boo, we wanted Kofi Kingston to come out, and that's annoying and all that. But you replaced him with a babyface. And a babyface who hasn't fully established himself yet and isn't immune to being turned on. You did the same thing with Kevin Owens, who's coming out and they were just starting to try to make him a babyface. So you had him, as his very first act of a babyface, he replaced a babyface that people wanted in a match more. It's very strange booking. And here's where I think that the crowd went downhill and they had to come all the way back up again. Like, they started this off annoyed and they were crapping all over it. And it took until like 3/4 of the way through the match before people started to just react to it to the way that the match was, which the match itself I thought was great. And if you would have not had that sort of setup, like if they would have been able to put it out ahead of time and said, look, Mustafa Ali is going to get a shot at the championship because he was supposed to be in the Elimination Chamber. Isn't that great? Without the Kofi Kingston stuff, I think people would have been much, much more receptive to it. But they didn't do that. They did a little misstep there. And I'm really hoping that it's not like people don't look at Mustafa Ali and Kevin Owens to a certain extent too, and they go, oh, that's not Kofi. Fuck that guy for taking Kofi's spot at Fastlane and that kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, and I had been saying this when I saw it happen. This could have gone over a little bit more smoothly had they just established that Mustafa ended SmackDown, helping Kevin Owens. So it wasn't like he wasn't a player in this story. It's just they ignored his role. They ignored the fact that, Kofi only got in the chamber because he was replacing Ali, and Ali came back this past Tuesday to help Kevin Owens. And I think they would put all the heat on Vince had Vince just come out and been like, I told you I'd give you a triple threat and here's a man who's been wronged, Mustafa Ali. And then it's just like, Vince, you're not getting it, you crazy old man. I don't think this will backfire on Ali too much because they were cheering him by the end of it and everything worked out pretty well. I don't know where this leaves Kevin Owens, but as we talked about on the preview show, it's okay to not be in a high profile position, but Kevin Owens versus Eric Rowan or Owens and Zayn versus Rowan and Harper isn't something I necessarily want to see at WrestleMania. But that's just me.
I mean, this match had as you say, everything going against it. In the sense that they decided to put Ali into the match again, didn't give the greatest explanation about why he was in the match, and like I'm sure most people would have realised, because basically most people watching this show would have watched SmackDown, so they would know what the situation is. But even so, it's not Kofi, so it's not who they wanted, and they obviously reacted to that immediately. This was a weird instance of WWE trying to get the reaction that they got from the Roman Reigns Brock Lesnar match, and actually intentionally seeking it out, because it wasn't like the commentary was trying to avoid talking about that situation. They were openly saying that the crowd is chanting for Kofi Kingston and not enjoying this match. It was part of the story. But obviously part of that story is the crowd is not enjoying the match. And as a viewer, I shouldn't take as much stock into it, but I take a lot of stock into how the crowd is reacting, and that often like colours my opinion of how a match is going. So for the first half of the match, I thought this match wasn't very good. But it was actually very good. And it was so good that they managed to get the crowd back on their side towards the end of it. I mean, that takes 3 absolute fantastic workers to do that, because this crowd could have just chided Kofi the entire match. They could have just like shit all over it, said chide like this is boring, or like anything along those lines.
Yeah.
And they managed to actually get to a point where they were actually invested in the match and invested in potentially seeing either Kevin Owens or Mustafa Ali retain the champion, or not retain, but win the championship, or Daniel Bryan even retaining. And that's a real credit to all 3 that were involved. There were a lot of like big spots, like the 450 onto the apron was like hard, like bump to take. You had Owens going over the top rope with like his flip dive. It's quite funny because like he hits the flip dive and he rolls forward and his head just almost smacks straight into an announce table, but he just manages to go like in between them, which was fortunate but good. And then Bryan hits a running knee in midair to pin Ali by the end of it. I think Ali leaves the match with a lot of credit. He feels more established as a guy who's just in the upper mid card now, and that's a good position to be in. I don't know, like you said, I don't know where it leads Owens, but it was a case where he was probably always penciled in to have the match at WrestleMania, or at least for a while was meant to be penciled to have the match at WrestleMania, and plans changed because of this Kofi Kingston thing, and he might end up losing a marquee match out of it. But at the end of the day, you have to go with what the crowd want, or at least that's what they're doing in behind the scenes. In front of the scenes, they're doing everything possible to not give the fans what they want. But
Right.
But and also, I don't see the point of the post-match attack by Rowan. Like, this is the 4th post-match attack at this point. I just think it's getting a little on the nose. I understand, like, a couple of them is like can be effective, but if every single match is ending in a post-match beatdown, then it's not very effective anymore. It's just taking up time.
Somebody backstage that was producing it was probably like, we need to make sure that Rowan looks strong.
Oh yeah,
which is like, why? He's huge.
We could have been involved in the match. I mean, he did get involved in the match. But
he was.
But you could have just done it in the match. He didn't have to attack afterwards as well.
Yeah.
But it's just, I mean, he's probably just going to lead to some tag team matches down the line, more like Mustafa Ali and Kevin Owens against it as they start building up towards Kofi Kingston's match. I mean, I'm excited in the fact that it's so obvious that it's Kofi Kingston in the WrestleMania title match.
I mean, it has to be.
Well, yeah, if they don't do that, then they're literally just trying to annoy the fans for the sake of annoying the fans. And then at that point, you just start thinking, it's not really worth it anymore.
Yeah, if they don't give Kofi the match, then it really becomes, okay, so they just don't. Go ahead.
I'll go further than that. They built the story up to the point where they have to have Kofi win the match.
Yeah,
Kofi has to win.
At this point, I'm kind of on the same page as that too. I kind of want them, even if it's a short title reign, they need to kind of give it to Kofi, because if they go with the whole idea of Kofi is good enough by getting that spotlight and he gets the round of applause, it's just the exact same thing as what happened at Elimination Chamber.
Yeah, and it's just a case of like, I know how we talked about, I don't know whether it was on the preview show or even earlier than that, we talked about the fact that they're not going to give all 3 baby faces the wins at WrestleMania. But then you look at the way they were treating this one, they treat the Becky Lynch situation, you just go, yeah, if any of them's got to lose, Rollins has got to lose the match. Which Yeah, which would suck. But it's like, if you are going to sacrifice one of those ones, then that's the obvious choice. Because the crowd has spoken. They're really behind Kingston. They're really behind Lynch. And Rollins was the third wheel in this Shield match, as we'll talk about later on.
You know, and that just shows you the weird, it's always moving nature of wrestling, because I'd go as far as to say at Survivor Series, well, before Nia punched Becky, who would have thought that the two biggest stories of WrestleMania would have been Becky Lynch and Kofi Kingston?
Right.
Like,
A couple months ago, I never would have been thinking that at all.
So wild.
I mean, a couple months ago, we were all talking about the idea of, well, The Miz has to fight Daniel Bryan and, different things like that.
But I appreciate the fact that they saw it happen, whether it was intentional or not, and definitely with Kofi Kingston one, it definitely wasn't intentional, but at least they are clearly going with it. And I'm pleased that they are doing it. And just to reiterate the facts of, I give a lot of credit to all three of these men for what they did in this match. It's a real testament to their ability. They managed to get the crowd back on side after essentially them just being told, we're not giving you what you want right from the get-go. Especially Ali, because that was a really difficult position for him to be in.
It's kind of a thankless job, and they pulled the rug out from underneath them and told them to go with, not having much of a foundation.
I hope it pays them back in the long run. Obviously, it shouldn't pay them back in terms of WrestleMania, where they should get a title match as well as Kofi Kingston. That should just be a one-on-one thing. But down the road, both Ali and Owens should get something good out of this.
I'm really hoping that at the very least, what they do is Kevin Owens stays somebody that they consider to be a top contender for either championship on the Universal or the WWE title. And that Mustafa Ali is somebody that they go, we got to give that guy a mid-card title this year. At least that, and of course, Bryan's going into WrestleMania as champion, so,
How do you feel about still Kevin Owens using the stunner?
It's weird.
I'm okay to an extent with it, in the sense that it's not. I don't have an issue with somebody using the Stone Cold Stunner, because let's put it this way: it's been over 15 years. Yeah. Somebody should be using that move and trying to get it over.
Yeah,
I just don't know whether Kevin Owens is the right guy for it.
I like it. Austin's endorsed it. The only thing I don't like is it's one of those moves for some reason that, even though everybody does a super kick, nobody's always like, shades of Shawn Michaels, but Owens does the stunner, and they're just like, yeah, a tribute to Stone Cold. If they stop bringing that up, I think it could be a good move for Kevin Owens. But if they continue to be like, yeah, he's paying tribute to Austin, then it's not going to work.
Yeah, because then it's just a copycat thing. It needs to be somebody that needs a finisher does the move, and they make it, they give it a different name. They don't call it a stunner.
Yeah. What I don't like about it is I don't like the fact that it's nerfed the pop-up powerbomb. In the sense that he doesn't win matches with the pop-up powerbomb now. He has to win matches with the stunner. Surely he could have both.
By the way, I loved the sit-out pop-up powerbomb. It was a little thing, but I thought it added to the impactfulness of the move. And the running knee in midair that Bryan used to win this thing might have been my favorite Daniel Bryan move since he's returned.
So our second to last match of the night was Charlotte Flair versus Becky Lynch. And the stipulation was Becky wins. She gets into triple threat at WrestleMania. Becky loses. Nope. That's essentially it. Becky goes into this with one leg, essentially, because she is still injured, quote-unquote injured. And there was really only one way for this to actually go down in any kind of reasonable sense, which is exactly what happened. Becky Lynch won the match, technically, by disqualification, because Ronda Rousey came out, punched Becky Lynch, and just kind of went off to the side because she wanted it to be a triple threat, which is a little bit of a more babyface type of thing to do, even though she's still attacking somebody. It's kind of wonky, but If Becky would have beaten Charlotte straight up, made her tap out, pinned her, whatever, it would have been ridiculous. And if they would have gone with Charlotte winning, then we would have spent the next 5 weeks just sitting there going, oh my God, can you just fucking announce the triple threat already? Like, been waiting for this since like November. Can you just do it? So I'm glad that they did this. And it also kind of gives a little bit more fuel for Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair because, let's be honest, this is a Becky Lynch feud. We have Ronda Rousey, she's the star. Becky Lynch has turned into this whole thing. Charlotte Flair has been pushed aside. And as much as they keep inserting Charlotte into the mix here, she's not really a factor all that much. So now she's going to have a reason to be mad at both Becky and Ronda in a way that we haven't been seeing over the past little bit of time. She and Ronda haven't had much going on all that, over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, this kind of made me feel like, all right, at least Charlotte, even though she's been kind of forced into this story, at least she has a bitch now where it's like, no, I had Becky beat, it should be a one-on-one, and Ronda screwed me. By the way, I like that Ronda did that only when she was 100% sure, okay, Becky, I gave you a chance, you're not getting out of this by yourself, but you're going to WrestleMania. And she just punched her once, looked at the ref like, you know what to do. As soon as he made the call, she walked away. The character the character development and the way it all played out, some of the best that I've seen in a while, and everybody played their role perfectly. Charlotte, which I said on the I think it might have been the previous show, that I wasn't really feeling her in this role. Yeah, I take that back. Charlotte was a master tonight, and just in Becky's face, in the face of the crowd, her facial expression when she just realized, like, shit, there's nothing I can do, now I gotta deal with both of them. I loved it. Loved it all around, yet again.
Okay, so a bit about ambivalence towards this one, because what you guys saying about like the logical situation and like the way that everything was booked out was the way that it should be is totally right and it's totally accurate, and this was very, very well booked and made complete sense. But I have problems with it in the sense of we saw so much bullshit on this show in terms of, and I don't mean in terms of like bad matches or anything like that, but just like
it's the bullshit storyline stuff.
Yeah, and it's just like this was another just match where somebody, like one of the women, interfered and hit a DQ and ended the match like that. I mean, it's abrupt and it makes totally logical sense. But then you put it in the context of every other match in this card having some sort of bullshit attached to it. It's just like, yeah, it's good, but are you having fun watching this? I mean, obviously you had the feel good thing in the main event at the end, which we'll get to, but it's like at this point, so like you're only enjoying this if you're appreciating the storyline associated with it and you're appreciating the story they're telling. But if you're just watching as a really casual fan, you're probably watching this thinking, "Well, this fucking sucks." Like nobody's winning. Like even the person who wanted to win, they won in a really cheap way, which was just really unfulfilling. So it's just a culmination thing. Like if this had been the only instance of it happening on the card, then it would be great and it'd be totally awesome. And it's still great, but it's just in context, it just doesn't work as well.
Well, that's what's weird about Fastlane, because Fastlane, it's a weird thing with WWE in general. They know that we know that they know that we know, so they don't try to not act like that's the give and take kind of a thing. Like, WWE practically says, in all the ways that they can without saying it, hey, everybody, tune into Fastlane, you'll figure out how the storylines are going to go for WrestleMania. And that's the only reason why you're tuning into Fastlane. Like, we've talked about it before, like SmackDown and Raw and, all the build up for all this kind of stuff over the past couple of weeks. It's them stalling until they get to Fastlane so they can actually push the buttons, and then they can stall a little bit more. And then over these next couple of weeks, we've got how many episodes of this kind of stuff do we have left?
4
We got
each.
4 more weeks?
Yeah.
So we got 4 more episodes. In those 4 episodes, we have to establish the Intercontinental title match, the United States title match a little bit, because it seems like it's the John Cena thing. So, the R-Truth thing, and then John Cena makes a save, whatever the case may be like that. We need to establish who that number 1 contender is for Asuka. We need to figure out the Raw Tag Team title match, the SmackDown Tag Team title match, push a little bit more the feuds like the Miz and Shane McMahon and whatever, but that's probably just going to be like over the course of the next 4 episodes of SmackDown. I'm assuming there's going to be 2 segments with that, and that's about it. We've got piggybacking off of the Becky Charlotte thing and all that. They'll probably do something tomorrow night on Raw where Charlotte will pitch and complain, and then Ronda Rousey will address it and whatever like that. And, they kind of have to hit all these different marks and stuff. And, the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, at the last minute, they'll go, fuck, we forgot to do that. And then they'll just have people cut those little handheld camera kind of things and go, hey, I'm Bray Wyatt, and I decided that I'm going to put my name in there or whatever. Unless he's sitting at home with his pregnant wife. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah, it's hot tags tomorrow night. They're kind of like, they're showing their cards a little bit, and I think in a different era, a lot of these things will be different, and they're booking it as if they were still in that different era. Because look at the way that things were built when they only had 4 pay-per-views. This would be Saturday night's main event. This wouldn't be Fastlane.
Yeah.
It's just it's a very interesting way to go about it. I mean, this whole Ronda, Becky, Charlotte feud itself has just been needlessly complicated from basically since the Royal Rumble win, and it's just a sense of, especially with this Ronda Rousey kayfabe stuff that's been going around, and in just like my general thing, I hate when this is ever brought up. I don't think it ever works.
Yes. Thank you, Callum.
But
not a fan of the Ronda Rousey shit either.
No, it's just like, I understand why people are a fan of it. I also understand that those people not are wrong, but may not familiar with what happened in WCW and stuff like that. And it's not even just the Ronda Rousey thing. It's Triple H saying that this is real. This isn't a character thing in his promo with like Batista earlier. It's like, you're really playing with fire with a lot of this stuff, and this sort of stuff did kill WCW. And it's not going to kill WWE because there's no competition yet. But it's just a sense of, like, just because you're the only game in town means you can get away with it, because people will just stop watching. And maybe they won't just stop watching. And maybe people that do overstate kayfabe, because the only people that are getting upset about this are people that know damn well that wrestling's fake. But it's just like, it didn't need to go that direction. You could have just had, basically, you could have had it really basic. You could have just had these 2 feuding, and you could have had Charlotte get into the match some other way with McMahon just saying that he wasn't sure that Becky was healthy, and so he put Flair in, and then you just have this match to sort it out, and then you just got Becky in the match. It's like,
well, they already had an in for that with Becky Lynch wasn't supposed to be in the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
So they'd say, well, Charlotte Flair was the one who was last, and Becky Lynch, you weren't technically supposed to be in it. And then they just kind of completely ignored that.
Yeah, they could have done that side of things. Also, like, with the Becky Lynch injury thing, and obviously it's a worked injury, but gloss over that side of things. If somebody's coming to a wrestling ring on crutches, surely, like, somebody should be sued over this, really.
Well, if you talk about people not being...
Well, she signed the hold harmless agreement, which is the idea about it. But then my question is, well, why didn't she sign a hold harmless agreement when she was concussed?
Right.
And it could have done it. It's like, it's just like...
The rules apply when we say they do.
And we talk about the idea of, like, this show is, like, well booked and logically, but then there's just it's just always confined the logical inconsistencies of, like, oh, we're just going to make this work because we have to make this work, even though it doesn't make any sense. And we don't pay attention to what we've done in the past. Like, we can't remember what we did like 2 or 3 weeks ago anyway, so we'll just carry on with it. It's like next week we'll probably have somebody do an injury ankle and then just say, oh, you just can't wrestle with a thing. So we did this whole harmless agreement thing. Oh, yeah, that didn't happen. Nobody remembers.
It's like when, I forget why they did this last year, but Bryan was still on the shelf and he just sort of goes, so how about that hold harmless agreement? That was interesting. And, nobody referenced it, but at least, Daniel Bryan was like, okay, so there is a way around me not being able to wrestle. But just to kind of put a bow on everything you guys said, just real quickly, because it's been all over the internet, I do not understand how so many people are like completely buying into this. Ronda said she's real and the business is fake. I can't stand when they do that. I can't stand that they're doing it for quite a few feuds this year. It's not my thing. Good for Becky to get into the spot, but I kind of feel like maybe the Royal Rumble should have been used to establish Asuka's solid opponent. If you knew that you were just gonna shit all over the concept of the Royal Rumble for the Ronda thing, then you should have just used the Rumble to establish Asuka's opponent and not this Becky Ronda Charlotte thing, because there's no reason that Becky should have had to earn her way in, or like you guys said, at least have the continuity to be like, well, you weren't in the Rumble anyway. Charlotte was. Charlotte's going to Mania. Like little details like that would make the story flow so much better.
And then that took us into the final Elias part of the night, where he takes a shot at Becky Lynch. Unfortunately, then we hit the Lacey Evans thing, and she just comes out and does the fucking ramp thing. I hate this so goddamn much in so many ways, and that's not because it's Lacey Evans, because I like Lacey Evans. I think it's just stupid. Somebody has a dumb idea about this, and they got a boner for it, and they're like, that's the way that we'll get her over. She comes out and does nothing for like 9 weeks. You're paying for her to come out there and do nothing. Like, they're paying for flights for her to do this.
I'm so glad you mentioned a boner, because somebody made the line of, yeah, she's going to knock you out and then butter your biscuit. But butter your biscuit, what does that mean? You figure it out. It's like, okay.
I can tell you who has the boner for it. It rhymes with Dick McFlan or Dins McFlan or whatever. It's clearly like this is Vince's type of woman, blonde, reasonably tall, muscular. It's like,
well, that's like I endorse the idea of giving Lacey Evans a push.
Why?
She try something out.
Did you not watch the Royal Rumble? She can't wrestle.
I don't look at her as being somebody who should be going into WrestleMania fighting for the championship. I think that she's somebody who they should do something with her at some point.
Yeah,
right now is not the time.
Yeah, beat down a broken match, that's fine. But it's like,
But I really don't like this idea that the way that they're going about pushing her is that she comes out and she walks halfway down the ramp and then walks away over and over and over again. Because to me, that's like one person suggested that one time. And it's kind of, like a lot of people talk about the idea of when Jericho came out and he didn't say anything. That annoyed me that night. And he did it a couple more times, and I'm like, oh my God, I fucking get it. Can you stop repeating it? Like, that's not making me want to see Jericho do anything. It's making me, as soon as Jericho does that, get up and go into another room. So now, like, when Lacey Evans comes out, I don't pay any attention to what Lacey Evans does. And I'm not going to until she does something. And I'm going to miss it because I'm not going to be paying any attention to it, you know? And anybody else that's not as hyper-vigilant as I would be, because I'm writing articles about it and stuff, they would go, it's the chick that comes out and doesn't do anything. And when she starts to do something, then they're going to go, oh, wait, she, like, wrestles? I thought all she did was go and do that. Well, is she any good? And then people are going to have to go, I don't know, let's see. And if that's not intriguing enough, the only thing that you've sold them on so far is what she looks like. And if that's all she is, then why are you having her fight for anything at WrestleMania if that's the case? Like, the only way I'm okay with them doing something like this is if she's a manager and not a wrestler, and that's not going to be the case.
Yep.
So, this is just a fail in that regard.
I was
But
going
at
to
least
say that I
go ahead.
would really like her to be a manager at this point, which is sad because just a few months ago I was talking about how much fun it would be to watch her fight Bianca Belair for the NXT Women's title. But at this point, I'd just rather her be a manager for a tag team. Like, she's Southern, she could pair up with the Revival there. That'd be a nice, interesting package. But what they're doing with her right now, I hope it's not leading to the Asuka thing.
At least they saved it in a way, because at that point I was going, God damn it, this whole Elias thing led to that she's going to be the one that interrupted it, and that's it. This is stupid. And then out of nowhere, Randy Orton hits an RKO. I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't expect that to happen.
And then out of nowhere, AJ Styles hits a forearm on Randy Orton.
I'm like, all right, okay, you got those guys on the card in a certain capacity. You're helping that angle out a little bit, and I didn't see it coming. And I was like, you know what? I liked these little Elias things. I didn't like the Lacey Evans part. I think that was a mistake. But it led to the distraction, so at the same time, I kind of understand that a little bit more, too, in retrospect. And I was like, I didn't like that Elias wasn't on the card. They got him on the card. They drove home the points that they wanted people to feel. It was like, get boos for the Miz thing, get boos for the Becky Lynch thing, get boos for the Kofi Kingston thing. Didn't take up all that much time, and I much preferred this than if they would have just ran longer video packages. Because they would have at least done that,
Yeah.
So I like this. I like the Elias thing.
I have to admit, when he said, I didn't get interrupted, I expected the Bray Wyatt noise. Just because I'm beginning to wonder where Bray Wyatt is, but I guess you have more information on that than I do.
I have more speculation at the very least.
Love the Randy thing, love the AJ thing. I mentioned this to you guys in our group chat. I'm probably looking forward to this match more than any other, just solely out of I've been waiting for them to feud for over 10 years. So I'm glad I'm getting it at WrestleMania.
Yawn. Move on. This was all it was building up to. All these Elias segments, just building up to a Randy Orton RKO and an AJ Styles finish match. It's just like, yeah. It's going to be a good match, but it's like, oh, okay, they're going to get 12 minutes, and then I'm just going to forget all about it afterwards.
Yeah, that's probably what it's going to be.
Which is unfortunate. Like, I get that WrestleMania is so stacked these days, but I hate that matches that aren't for championships automatically become, we're going to forget about it like 20 minutes after it's over.
I know, I'm not going to forget about The Miz or Shane McMahon. I'm not going to forget about, like, Batista and Triple H. I'm going to forget about this one because these two just don't have anything going for each other at the moment. The only thing they've got going for each other is like, oh my god, it's a dream match, Randy. And you know what AJ Styles is like with this? Oh my god, it's a dream match. It's like, that's not enough. That's not enough for AJ Styles, and this clearly isn't enough for AJ Styles to get a good feud out of somebody. But saying, "Oh my god, just see these two against each other is like it's going to be amazing." It's like, you actually
need Nakamura.
Yes. So it's like, wow, it's every other story. And to be fair, AJ Styles hasn't had that standout. He had a great match with Shane McMahon, but he's not had that standout match at WrestleMania yet. Like the match with Jericho was good, but like
nobody's talking about it the way they are Jericho Michaels.
And the Shane McMahon match was like, it was arguably the best match on that entire show, but that just goes to show that the rest of the show wasn't actually that impressive. And then the other match is the Nakamura one, which just was so much worse than everyone expected it to be. So this could be an opportunity for him to get that performance, but I'm not looking forward to seeing 3 minutes of Randy Orton having AJ Styles in a headlock, which we're going to see. So
very much.
I just think it wasn't worth the payoff if this was all the Elias segments are building up to. I'd rather the pay-per-view ended 10 minutes earlier.
Well, I'm getting really nervous that the Saudi Arabia show that's happening after WrestleMania is going to be like, let's try to make it to where whatever we don't do that's good enough at WrestleMania that we do at the Saudi Arabia show and just have rematches and stuff. And that's also
100%.
something that I'm thinking is something that we were mentioning earlier, that if anybody's going to lose out of this, it's going to be Seth Rollins. Well, I'm thinking, all right, just go ahead and fucking book Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar in Saudi Arabia. Just go ahead and do it, because it's probably going to happen now.
I still feel like Roman might get it on the Raw after, but I definitely don't feel like Seth Rollins even has a shot in hell against Brock Lesnar, which is terrible because he won the Royal Rumble, and as we're going to talk about in a minute, he was very much the third wheel in this match for the Shield, and I think it's another case of the Royal Rumble being diluted and downplayed and not good.
Well, we had the Shield against Baron Corbin, Bobby Lashley, and Drew McIntyre, 6-man tag match, which little did we know was a no DQ match. Didn't fucking matter, you know. They're just like, fuck it, do it, whatever. Fun match, I thought. Good way to just sort of let a lot of frustration go and, you know, have a big brawl and have everybody fight together and end off the night with the Shield standing tall and what could potentially be the last time. I don't think so, but they're kind of treating it as that at the very least. So I'm really glad that there wasn't a heel turn or anything.
Yeah, we saw way too much tonight for there to be anything really over the top. Like, I thought Ambrose was going to turn on Roman, but I'm glad it didn't happen. And honestly, the Shield is so special, and there's such an overact that I don't want to see it come unglued again. And with the way they were talking about it being the last time, and Ambrose isn't re-signing, if he's really not re-signing and they don't have plans for him, I'd be okay with that being his last major moment with WWE.
I mean, as we get onto this and not discussed it in more detail, I've been a bit calmer about the whole situation of this guy at certain points in this like Fastlane thing. I was looking at it and thinking, well, this is just going to be an absolute dumpster fire of a show. But I was so thankful that this match was just so simple, so straightforward, and it just ended in a nice babyface victory. This was the right choice to go on last. You know, people will talk about like other matches like WWE Championship should be more prestigious, or the Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair thing is going to lead to WrestleMania. Obviously, if that match had that finish and that was the final match of the card, then it would leave a pretty bad taste in the mouth. But this was just a nice moment. It was a well put together match, and yeah, the right people won. There's really not too much to say about it, really, other than the fact that it was just well wrestled. Like I can't recall a Shield 6-man tag match that was never good. And even though it seems like you have to, in order to fully enjoy this match, you have to either not care or not remember that the last 4 months happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
And you also have to ignore specifically Super Showdown.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that was just the Shield versus 3 fucking random people.
Mm-hmm.
Baron Corbin was like kind of in the mix there. Drew McIntyre was definitely one of them. So they replaced Bobby Lashley and Baron Corbin with Dolph Ziggler and Braun Strowman. You get the same fucking thing. Like, you know.
Yeah. But it's just it's a formula that's worked for them in the past. I mean, WWE has kind of, as much as we like rag on them for tag team wrestling and stuff like that, they kind of nailed the 6-man tag team formula. And pretty much every 6-man tag team match they have, even though it's usually some of them are quite generic, most of them are just pretty good matches. Like, it's hard to have a bad 6-man tag team match. But
I'm gonna go and give a shout out to the crowd, because this should have been bland and dull and generic, but the crowd being so into the Shield made this so important, so special, and I can't say a bad thing about it, except Seth Rollins is supposed to be fighting Brock Lesnar, and that is the last thing on my mind.
Yeah, it's the idea of, obviously, this was a big deal for Roman because this was his first match back from fighting leukemia. And Dean Ambrose is obviously a big talking point because he could be leaving after this. Seth Rollins is the guy who should have the most going for him, but he actually has the least going for him at the moment.
So here's where I'm going to come up with the thing I teased earlier. What do you think the odds are that they go the Revival against Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose at WrestleMania?
I thought about it. I'd be into it.
It would not shock me at all if they do that. They have them win the titles, and then they just vacate the titles. And then for the second year in a row, Raw Tag Team Champions are won by people who vacate it right afterward. And Brock Lesnar retains the championship. Because that way you get Roman Reigns beats Brock Lesnar in Saudi Arabia to give them their big fucking thing. And because you can't keep Brock too much longer, and you put the title on Roman because he's the one that they wanted to be the champion, not Seth Rollins. And you kind of like, you know what I mean? You kind of do something like that. Like, that's where I'm kind of leaning right now.
How many times are we going to say, well, you can't have Brock for too much longer? They keep getting this guy back. I'm beginning to think that Brock might be a lifer just in sporadic points.
We gotta figure even if he's sticking around and signing another contract, he's not going to show up again past the Saudi Arabia thing until SummerSlam.
Probably not. I mean, it's quite obvious at this point with Brock that he completely fabricated the UFC stuff, and he used it to get a bigger pay package.
Supposedly $12 million.
Yeah, which is, listen, if you can get it, then full credit to him for that. That's you can't blame somebody for trying to get the most amount of money out of the job they do.
No, it's just kind of a dick thing to do, though, because, like,
well, what's the is it more like a big dick or big dick thing, but a dick thing for the big dick on his chest? Obviously, that's where he gets it from. But it's like, no, a dick thing for Brock Lesnar to go for that sort of money, or is it stupidity on WWE's part for paying that money, even though he shows no noticeable difference on ratings?
Oh, well, the bigger problem here is WWE that goes, yep, we got to give him $12 million instead of giving a little bit more money to everybody else and pushing them. And, because look at this card. This card had no Brock Lesnar. I fucking love this event. And they're going to set up this whole Brock Lesnar thing over the next few weeks, and I'm going to be hating Monday Night Raw. And then,
Since there's only 4 more Raws, can he be on 3 of them?
No, come on. He's going to be on 2 maximum. Paul Heyman is going to be on 4 of them. And they're going to run that into the fucking ground. He's going to cut the same exact promo that he's been cutting.
The best thing that I read when Roman Reigns came back was, I don't know why he dropped the Universal title. It's only been defended once since he's been gone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in terms of my mindset of where I think the Universal title is going, I think that Rollins is winning it at WrestleMania and he's going to defend it against Reigns at SummerSlam. I don't know whether the idea of... I mean, it'd be interesting if you had, like, Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose win the Tag Team Championships, and then, by proxy, the title passes over to Rollins and Reigns. You just have a thing like, it's the Shield, it's Freebird rule, Dean Ambrose leaves, and Rollins becomes Tag Team Champion with Roman Reigns, as well as the Universal Champion. And that could start sowing seeds, like, if you have the idea of them losing the tag titles to whatever team you want to put them against, and it's either Rollins, well, you could have Reigns accidentally costed by some sort of miscommunication. That could start building a friendly rivalry between the two of them, which could just lead in any direction you wanted to. That's kind of the way I would do it, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like a big enough match to put Reigns in for WrestleMania, but it's far preferable than the idea of him facing Baron Corbin.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Baron Corbin, Bobby Lashley, and Drew McIntyre, they can't just do, like, without it being stupid, they can't just say, like, all right, well, the match at WrestleMania is Drew McIntyre against Roman Reigns or something like that. Because then it's just like, well, for what? For, why? You already have 17 matches on this card. Why are we going to set aside 10 minutes for this,
Well, that's what I could...
But if you do the whole revival thing, you can try to spin it as being like, well, they're going to fight for the tag titles. And the last time that Dean Ambrose did this, he ended up turning on his partner. And maybe that's going to be just the build of, like, then they'll care about the Raw tag title match.
Well,
you know?
Well, that's why I can see Reigns not even wrestling at WrestleMania. He's just in Seth's corner for the Universal title match.
I think if they got him, he's gonna work.
Well, he's still going to be there. It's not like they lose out on him. He's still there. But
I think tomorrow night, this is why I wanted to talk about this stuff before we got into, like, you know, some more things later on down on the line. Like, tomorrow night, we're either going to see a big push to, like, all right, these are the matches we're going to start to try to go to for WrestleMania because we have 3 more weeks after this. Or they're going to spend so much time wrapping up Fastlane that next week they're going to be like, fuck, we have no time for WrestleMania. Let's just hit the fast forward button on that. And if we get any kind of a tease, any whatsoever, of the Revival and the Shield interacting, I think we're going Ambrose and Reigns winning those titles. And then just, I don't know, because it all depends too on when Ambrose's thing ends. If Ambrose sticks with WWE, then they'll keep those tag titles on them, and they'll have Reigns and do that kind of thing, like going at least a little bit forward. Maybe even they drop it in Money in the Bank or something like that. Maybe they drop it in Money in the Bank to Authors of Pain. Maybe by then Akam is ready, you know, or whatever the case may be. I don't know. Like, but if Ambrose is leaving in like April 20th or something like that, then I think that they win the tag titles, and the night after WrestleMania, they either get attacked by the Undisputed Era, or they do something where, like, Ambrose goes, look, yeah, I'm ready to leave, though, and it was great to end off doing this, and we're going to vacate those titles, and just be like, well, fuck it, we didn't plan on doing this 2 years in a row, but it happened, shut up, everybody, you know, that kind of thing.
So it's looking like the tail end of April, or even early May.
May 3rd is the Saudi Arabia show, and they could do the title changeover on that one, too. I don't know.
There's a lot of things up in the air at the moment still. Even if there is like a short amount of time there, it's the best thing is the fact that like most of the big matches seem very cemented, as we've said earlier. So I don't mind that some of them still need to be flashed out a little more before we know. I'm
also thinking too, by the way, that they're not doing a Kurt Angle retirement thing.
They can't fit Kurt Angle on this card as well with this amount of stuff going on.
No. So it's going to be him against Drew McIntyre, and
he's going to be in the Battle Royal.
Purpose. Yeah.
So looking at the rosters and looking at everything that we're talking about, do you still prefer a brand split?
Yes.
In an ideal world, yes.
Well, I'm going to say no, just because the way that they execute it, especially now that every pay-per-view is merged, it kind of seems like they could get more done and make more feel meaningful if they just merge the brands.
Telling you, Clash of Champions, I think it's happening.
Well, I'd say if I know this could lead into more different tangents, and we want to wrap up fairly soon, but if you want to merge the brands, then you need to get rid of a lot of people, because there's just
that's happening.
But yeah, well, there's just too many people on the roster, because it's too many people to do it on 2 brands. So you need to, especially if you're gonna bring more people up after WrestleMania, you need to really start cutting some dead weight.
Well, you figure they're going to lose people for AEW, and then they might not call up a bunch of people from NXT, and then Clash of Champions comes around in October, and then they just say, fuck it, we want Ronda Rousey to be able to appear on both shows because USA wants her and Fox wants her.
Yeah.
And, you know, there you go.
It's just an idea of, like, I never will advocate, as I always said, for anyone to lose their jobs. But I could probably think, like, look at the roster and think of 20 people to cut from WWE and you don't lose anything. Like, just snap the fingers and they're gone, and WWE still feels pretty much the same.
Or shit, do what we have said before. Add those people into NXT and NXT UK or something.
They're too crowded as well. Especially if they're only an hour-long shows and stuff like that. They're far too crowded.
You get them on, like, the house shows, and you get them to pop up every once in a while, because some of those people you can cut too. Like, I mean, you're going to have to cut people no matter what, but How many people in NXT really need to stick around that are hanging around in the Performance Center for 4 years before they get to the NXT show?
How about you just get rid of them, let them thrive on other promotions, and then the entire wrestling business benefits?
Well, you can't do that, Cal, because then you're actually, not monopolizing things.
I know it's like weird. It's like that was how the wrestling business worked for so many years and really was successful off the back of it.
Damn it! It goes against the merge idea.
No, you all merge under one organization that like kind of co-brandly works together. We'll call it the NWA.
I was just gonna say like some sort of national wrestling alliance or some sort. Yeah. Alrighty, guys. Well, that is Fastlane 2019. My voice stuck together this entire time. Actually, it sounds a little better to me.
Yeah,
it really
strange. Cleared up.
It just goes to show you, if you lose your voice, talk more. That'll help. We talked about, obviously, everything that we could possibly talk about with this, outside of making this even further long, because it's already a 2-hour-long podcast. And we will talk about any other topics that come about over the next couple of weeks. Throughout the next couple of weeks, we've got a lot of things coming your way. Actually, more than the normal amount of things, and I don't know how we're going to squeeze it all in. But in any capacity, over the next bunch of weeks, whether it's article format or podcast, I mean, obviously some of them are clearly podcasts, but we've got hot tags, of course, for every single week. We have, coming up soon, we have another edition of 2001. We've got, I don't know if I'm going to do it yet in whatever capacity, but fantasy booking for WrestleMania. Right now, at the very least, I'm thinking probably an article. We are going to do a Mount Rushmore of WrestleMania competitors. We are going to do a Wrestling with the Past for the Hall of Fame retrospective. Maybe the Smark Out Moment Hall of Fame will come back this year. I really don't know if I'm going to do that or not. We've got WrestleMania predictions. We've got the mailbag for March, takeover predictions, WrestleMania, of course, when it happens and all that. So these next 5 weeks and all that, while we're doing the Smark Madness tournament, while there's also a contest that's up on the website right now. And if you don't know what the contest is, go to the website and check the little sidebar. You can win a Funko Pop of either Triple H or Shawn Michaels. All you got to do is, follow the instructions, and you can enter multiple different times. I think that there's like 11 ways that you can enter or something. And if you get 10 points for each t-shirt or something you buy, so you can do some shut down stuff like that. But yeah, there's lots of stuff that's happening right now because it's the road to WrestleMania. So I'm going to get you guys as involved as possible right now. And one of the other things to be aware of course, is if you want to know what's going on with all that stuff on the podcast side of things, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel, ring the bell for the notifications, follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SmarkOutMoment. Check the SmarkOutMoment.com stuff for all the other things I'm not even talking about. Hit up the Patreon if you want to throw some spare change our way to keep us going and convince us to try to, do even more things that are coming your way. We've got the TeePublic and Redbubble shops for all the other kind of merchandise, things like that. I've got Fanboys Anonymous that I'm still trying to do on the side, so check out fanboysanonymous.com and follow all those accounts and stuff. Check out the stuff I've got happening on eWrestling News and on Bleacher Report, because I'm still pumping those things out too. And whatever else is happening, I'm losing track of it by now, so you're going to have to tell me at some point, but let's pass the buck over to these guys. Rob, what do you want to toss out there?
eWrestlingNews.com, Dude Felice, Twitter and Instagram. You can stay tuned for the Triple Threat, which will likely be a Fastlane recap from 3 other people at SmarkOutMoment.com. And Callum, what would you like to toss out there?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. 2001 and Wrestling Odyssey. You can obviously go back and listen to the January and February editions. The March one will be coming up in the hopefully very near future. We're also planning on doing a special one just dedicated to reviewing WrestleMania 17 because it's a pretty big show, so we thought we'd devote just an entire episode to reviewing that one instead. So that'll be coming up in early April as well. And just to, obviously there's a lot of stuff that's planning on going out, but just throw it out there in the potential. There's currently a reasonably big thing going on in New Japan at the moment called the New Japan Cup. And essentially, if Rob is available and we feel up to it, we might consider doing a post-show for the final. I think that would be an interesting idea, Rob, or at least like a review of the tournament.
I'd be interested in that. Yeah.
Yeah, just to obviously we don't want to just like crowd you with so much WWE stuff because that's going to be taking up the majority of things going until AEW comes around. So maybe just to lighten the palate a little bit, we might do that. And obviously, when we talk about all of these other big shows, we've got the NXT Takeover, the WrestleMania. There's also the big Madison Square Garden show that's going on as well.
I was going to ask if we wanted to do something for that.
I think it would probably be us two doing that because Tony won't know who's actually involved in it at all. So, and he'll be dead. And he'll be dead by the end of it as well. So.
Yeah, if I make it to when the week after the Superstar Shakeup, then it's a miracle.
Yeah. So we'll see. Obviously, we're all going to be working hard to try and get as much stuff out there as possibly can. But if some of the stuff like falls through the cracks, it wasn't without the lack of intent. It was just the lack of time and energy.
And it wasn't because we don't love you. Because despite what everybody tells you, we love you.
We do. We love you.
We don't love you like Sasha Banks loves Bailey. But we...
That was a good callback. Yeah, so that's all we got cooking right now, everybody. Throw your spices in there by tossing some comments below and telling us what you thought about everything that's happening and what you're excited about over the next couple of weeks that you are anticipating for all the stuff that we were talking about. And you will see those things rolled out as they come along. Hot tags, of course, being the next thing. So adios for now, everybody, but we will see you very, very soon. For now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.